The morning was quiet but busy at the city's main airport. People rolled suitcases, checked their phones, and stood in long lines that moved like slow rivers. Justice Amara Brooks, a calm and thoughtful woman in a navy suit, arrived early for her flight. She did not wear her robe or carry anything that showed her job. She did not want special attention. She simply wanted to reach her destination, meet the students at a community law clinic, and give a short talk about fairness and dignity. She checked in, scanned her boarding pass, and smiled at the gate agent who wished her a good flight. Amara's steps were unhurried. She had a small carry-on, a slim laptop bag, and a paperback novel with a yellow bookmark. She took a breath, as she often did in crowded places, letting the air settle her thoughts. When the boarding call came, people stood at once, forming a tight line near the gate. The flight was full, and many passengers had bulky bags and winter coats. One baby cried in a soft, tired way. A parent bounced the child and whispered soothing words. A young couple tried to balance coffee cups and backpacks. Business travelers stared at screens, half listening to the boarding groups being called. Amara waited until her group was announced, then joined the line with patience. As she stepped onto the jet bridge, the air temperature changed from the open terminal to the close, recycled cabin air. She smiled at the sight of the plane's door, the friendly stickers near the hinge, and the usual hum that said the aircraft was alive and preparing. Inside, things felt a little rushed. The flight attendants were moving quickly, checking seat numbers and guiding people down the aisle. One of them, a woman in her 30s with a neat bun and a tired face, spoke loudly to everyone, asking them to keep moving and store bags fast. The overhead bins were filling up. Some passengers held up the flow while they pushed their suitcases into the compartments. Another attendant offered to gate check a bag and smiled as he placed a pink tag on the handle. The pace carried a bit of stress. It was not anyone's fault in particular. It was that kind of morning, and these crews lived inside strict schedules and tight turnarounds. Amara found her row and saw another person standing there, trying to decide which side to take for their middle seat. There was also a small mix-up with the overhead space. A roller bag lay sideways, taking up room meant for two. Amara waited and said, in a soft voice, that she could turn her suitcase upright to make space for others. She reached up to adjust her bag, careful not to bump the person behind her. In that moment, the loud attendant reached the row and saw the slowdown. Her voice was strong, a little too sharp for the close space. "We need to keep moving," she said. "Ma'am, please stop blocking the aisle. People are waiting." Amara lowered her arms and turned slightly, keeping her voice even. "I'm happy to move," she said. "I'm just turning my bag so there is more room. It will take a second." The attendant, already stretched thin by the rush, made a fast choice. She stepped forward, placed a firm hand near Amara's shoulder, and guided her a small step ahead, as if to show the flow. To the people watching, it looked like a push to get her going. A few heads lifted. A teenager lifted a phone, not fully recording yet, but ready in that way young people often are. The attendant's tone rose. "Ma'am, you need to move faster," she insisted. "We have rules for a reason." Amara felt the pressure of the hand and the heat of the moment, but she kept her posture relaxed. She did not raise her voice. "I understand," she said. "I'm making space so we can all sit down." She finished the small turn of her suitcase, slid it into the bin neatly, and took her seat by the window. The person with the middle seat slid in with a grateful nod. Across the aisle, a few people shared glances. A quiet tension lingered in the air, like a string pulled tight. The attendant moved on down the aisle, reminding people to buckle up. Her steps were brisk, and she muttered something about delays and rules that only the nearest passenger could hear. The doors closed a few minutes later. The plane pushed back from the gate with that gentle backward roll that always feels like the start of a journey. The cabin lights flickered, and the safety video began. Amara looked straight ahead and breathed in and out, counting to 4 in her mind. She was not angry, but she was not comfortable with what had happened. She believed in rules, of course. She believed in structure and keeping flights on time. But she also believed, in every part of her work and life, that words and tone mattered, especially in small spaces where people felt trapped, tender, and tired. She thought about doing nothing. Most people would. It was a small moment, after all. She had her seat. No one was hurt. The plane would take off, and people would forget. Still, something small can reveal something bigger. If stress travels from crew to passenger, and if tone turns harsh, a simple cabin can become a place of fear. Fear makes people less likely to listen in an emergency. Fear makes the aisle tight in more ways than one. Amara reflected on a public aviation forum she had spoken at months before. She had been invited to share ideas about fairness and calm communication as part of safety culture. The airline's head of safety had asked good questions that day. They had exchanged professional contact information. It was not a favor. It was a shared wish: safe flights, respectful cabins. Amara reached for her phone, turned it to silent, and opened her contacts. She typed a short message and added a brief note about what had happened. She did not write about herself. She did not mention her title or her work. She spoke as a passenger who felt that an interaction had crossed a line, and that the risk was not about feelings alone, but about the way stress can grow when words grow too loud. She tapped the call button after the message, more to make sure it was seen than to speak at length, and left a calm voicemail: "This is a safety concern in the cabin, related to communication and de-escalation. I wanted you to be aware." Outside the windows, the plane paused on the taxiway, waiting in a slow line of aircraft. The captain's voice came over the speaker with calm authority. "Folks, we've got a brief hold," he said. "Traffic is a little heavy. We'll get you on your way as soon as we can." A baby cooed. Someone coughed. The safety video repeated the seat belt instructions on the overhead screens. Amara rested her hands on the paperback and looked at the small pattern on the seat back pocket. She did not know if anything would come of her call. She only knew it was good to name a problem while it was still small, to keep it from becoming a bigger one later. 2 rows ahead, a man with reading glasses whispered to his partner. "Did you see that?" he asked. "That attendant kind of shoved her." The partner shrugged and said softly, "Everyone's stressed." But she stayed very calm. That helped. Behind Amara, a college student tapped a message into a group chat: "Something weird happened on the plane. One attendant is super tense." These were small ripples, traveling outward on the still water of a full cabin. Most people did not want drama. They wanted to arrive, pick up their bags, and meet the rest of their day on time. A minute later, the captain spoke again, but this time his voice had the careful rhythm that means something specific is happening. "Ladies and gentlemen, operations has asked us to return to the gate for a quick check," he said. "We appreciate your patience. Please remain seated." A few people sighed. One person said, "Oh no, my connection," and checked their watch. The plane turned gently and began to taxi back. The attendants looked at one another with the understanding that plans had shifted. The loud attendant's face tightened for a second. Then she looked down the aisle with a practiced smile and began to prepare the cabin for the return. As the aircraft rolled to a stop at the gate, the jet bridge came back to meet the door. The seat belt light stayed on. The captain added a note: "We'll keep you updated. Thank you for staying seated." There was no mention of names. There was no blame in his voice. Just the steady, measured tone of someone who knows that safety is not only about engines and wings. It is also about the temperature of the room, the edges of words, the way people feel when asked to follow instructions that can sometimes be hard to hear. The door opened. An operations manager in a navy blazer stepped inside and spoke quietly with the lead flight attendant at the front. Their words did not carry down the aisle, but their posture said enough: something needed attention. The manager looked along the rows as if to say, "We see you. We respect you. We are here." A few passengers relaxed a little, sensing adult hands on the wheel. The manager moved to the back to speak with the crew in private. The captain stayed on the speaker only long enough to say, "We're taking a few minutes to ensure a safe and comfortable flight for everyone." Amara stayed seated, as requested. She was not hiding. She was not stepping forward either. She believed in process. She believed that the truth of a moment can be found best when people are calm, when facts are gathered, and when nobody tries to win. A gentle truth, she often thought, is still a truth. She looked out the window at a baggage cart passing by, the small blinking lights moving like stars on ground level. She thought about the students she would meet later, about the questions they would ask: how do we do the right thing when the clock is loud and the world is watching? Her answer was always the same: slow down, listen, use your words like bridges. In the aisle, a nearby passenger cleared his throat and smiled at her. "You handled that well," he said softly. Some people would have shouted. Amara nodded and smiled back. "Thank you," she said. "We all get tired. It helps when someone stays steady." The man looked relieved to share a few kind words. The cabin, which had felt tight a moment before, loosened by a fraction. The baby up in row 3 fell asleep at last, head on a parent's shoulder. The couple with coffee cups shared a quiet joke and tucked their lids into the seat back pocket to free their hands. The minutes were not wasted, though some people would say they were. They were a pause to reset the temperature of a crowded room in the sky. The airline did not announce reasons in detail, and that was fine for now. What mattered was the decision to take a breath and look closely. A plane is a small city of strangers. Its safety rests on many layers: metal and math, yes, but also manners and mercy. When the door is closed and the seat belt light is on, people feel how small the space is and how near the strangers are. Words can land like hands, hands can feel like words. It is wise to check both. At last, the captain came back on the speaker with a brief update. "We're working with our team to ensure a smooth flight," he said. "Thank you again for your patience." His voice was still calm, still measured, the sound of a steady hand on a wheel most of the cabin would never see. Amara placed her phone back in her bag and looked down at the yellow bookmark in her paperback. She did not open the book yet. She sat with the quiet. She let the small hum of the cabin fold around her, and she hoped that this pause would lead not to blame, but to learning. No one knew the details of her work, and that was fine. She was a traveler in a seat near the wing, holding a small story that had not yet finished telling itself. The push had been small, the words had been sharp, and the choice she made had been simple: call attention to safety in a calm way. What would happen next would belong to more than one person. The plane was grounded, for now, not because anyone wanted trouble, but because everyone on board deserved care that felt like care. In a few minutes or longer, if that was what it took, someone would come down the aisle to speak, to listen, to set a better tone. And when they did, a crowded room at 30,000 feet would feel a little bigger, not in size, but in heart. The return to the gate felt like time slowing down inside a crowded room. People stayed seated as asked, but small movements continued: a water bottle cap turned, a zipper closed, a seat belt clicked and unclicked from habit. The jet bridge connected, and the cabin door opened with a soft hiss, the kind that always means a pause has become official. An operations manager in a navy blazer came back down the aisle with a calm face and an open notebook. He introduced himself by first name only and thanked everyone for their patience. He did not raise his voice. He did not rush. He spoke in plain words, the kind everyone could hear. He began by asking the row near Amara if anyone was willing to share what they saw. The man from row 7, who had whispered earlier, lifted his hand. He spoke in a steady tone. He said the passenger by the window Amara was calm and trying to turn her bag to make space. He said the attendant's tone sounded sharp and the guiding hand looked like a push, even if it was quick and light. He did not add drama. He did not try to guess intentions. He simply told the small truth he had seen. The operations manager thanked him and wrote careful notes. A young college student across the aisle added a short account. She admitted she had lifted her phone, but she had not recorded the moment fully. She said she felt the air change in the cabin when the voice grew louder. People got tense, she said. I think everyone wanted the same thing, to sit down and breathe. The operations manager nodded and asked if she would be comfortable writing a brief statement later. She agreed. The person in the middle seat beside Amara also spoke. He said he was grateful for the extra space created by the turned suitcase and that the request to move faster felt harsher than the moment needed. The manager did not ask names over the speaker. He moved gently, seat by seat, keeping voices local and private. When he reached Amara's row, he looked at her with the same respectful calm he had shown everyone. He asked if she would be willing to share her view of what happened, either now or on the jet bridge. Amara chose the jet bridge for privacy and to give the aisle back to the crew. She stood, waited for the small space to clear, and stepped forward with her slim laptop bag and a steady breath. Inside the jet bridge, the hum of the airport returned, softer than the cabin but still alive with work. There, she spoke simply. She said she believed in rules and timing and the tight choreography of boarding. She also said that in close spaces, tone can feel like touch, and touch can feel bigger than intended. She described the guiding hand near her shoulder and how it felt in that narrow aisle. She said she did not plan to make a scene and that she did not want to punish anyone. She had placed a call to the head of safety only to make sure a small problem did not become a bigger one later. She asked for balance, care for passengers and care for crew. The operations manager listened without interrupting. He thanked her for her calm report and asked if she would write a brief statement for the record. She agreed and opened her notes app. Her words were neutral and specific. She wrote about the sequence of events, the words used, and the feeling in the cabin. She did not name feelings for others, she described only her own. She signed with her full name but did not add her title. She handed the phone to the manager so he could copy the text to a secure form and promised to email a copy if they needed it later. Back inside the aircraft, the captain gave a short update. We are gathering information to ensure a smooth and respectful experience for everyone, he said. Thank you for your patience. He meant it. He also knew connections mattered. He asked the gate team to identify travelers with tight schedules and to begin rebooking options. A few passengers near the front were invited to step out briefly to speak with agents. The process felt messy and kind at the same time, messy because time was passing, kind because people were being seen. The flight attendants stood together near the galley while the manager spoke quietly with their lead. The attendant with the neat bun and tired face kept her hands folded. She stared at the service cart as if it could tell her what to do next. She did not look angry now. She looked like someone who realized a fast moment had gone wrong in a slow room. The lead attendant offered her a cup of water and invited her to step onto the jet bridge for a break. On the bridge, the operations manager met her eyes and asked how she was doing. She said she was stressed. She said she had been thinking about the schedule, and the bags, and a late catering cart. She said she wanted the aisle to move so everyone could sit and the plane could leave on time. The manager did not argue. He honored the truth of her morning. Then he asked a careful question. When our voice gets sharper, what happens to the room? She took a breath and answered honestly. The room gets sharper too. He nodded and spoke about de-escalation, the way simple language can soften a tight moment, and how a guiding touch, even if light, can feel like pressure in a crowded aisle. He reminded her that safety is not only about doors and seat belts, it is also about the emotional air inside the cabin. She listened. She said she did not mean harm. She said she was sorry the passenger felt pushed. She offered to apologize. While they spoke, a gate agent and another operations staff member moved quietly through the cabin to check on special needs. An older passenger with a cane asked for a chance to stretch on the jet bridge. The agent helped him step out and back in safely. The parent with the baby asked for an extra cup of water and a napkin, and the second attendant brought both with a soft "You're doing great." Small kindnesses began to stitch the room back together. The college student by the aisle felt the difference and put her phone away, no longer waiting to record anything at all. Amara remained calm at her seat after her conversation on the jet bridge. She looked out at the wing and watched the ground crew move cones like pieces of a puzzle. She thought again about dignity, how it is both a feeling and a practice. She thought about the students she would meet later and how she would tell them a story about a small moment that mattered. Not to scare them. Not to blame anyone. But to show how leadership can be quiet and everyday. Her hands rested on her paperback. She admired the patience of the cabin around her, the way most people accepted the pause, even if they did not enjoy it. The operations manager returned to the front and spoke with the captain. Their conversation was brief and professional. A choice was on the table: continue with the same crew after a reset and apology, or make a crew adjustment to lower tension and model accountability. The manager checked crew rules, rest windows, and the availability board. A relief attendant was on standby 2 gates away. Bringing a new person on would add time, but it might also rebuild trust. The captain weighed the options and asked a question: what helps the room breathe? The manager answered, the room breathes when people feel heard and safe. A decision formed, not to punish but to protect the tone of the flight. The manager told the lead attendant that a relief crew member would take over for the colleague who had the tense moment. He emphasized that this was not a scar, it was a step toward balance. The attendant on the jet bridge heard the news with wide eyes. She nodded slowly. She asked if she could apologize to the passenger before stepping off. The manager said yes, if the passenger was comfortable with it and if the apology was simple and sincere. He approached Amara and asked gently if she would accept a short apology. Amara agreed, with the condition that the conversation be private and brief, and that it be about the moment rather than labels or roles. The attendant came to the row with careful steps. She kept her voice low and said she was sorry for her tone and for the guiding hand. She said she was stressed but that stress is not an excuse. She thanked Amara for staying calm. Amara met her apology with quiet grace. She said she understood hard days. She said she appreciated the honesty. She said she trusted that the airline would offer support and training so that future mornings would feel better for everyone. After the apology, the attendant collected her things and stepped off to meet a supervisor for a break, coaching, and a plan. A relief attendant arrived, fresh and centered, and introduced himself to the cabin with a warm hello. The lead attendant quietly briefed him on where they were in the process, which carts were stocked, and which passengers might need extra care. The captain made another announcement. He thanked everyone for patience and explained, without names or blame, that they had made a staffing adjustment to ensure a calm and safe flight. There were sighs, yes, but also nods. People understand when leaders choose tone and safety over speed. Gate agents moved in the aisles with lists of connecting flights. They offered rebooking to travelers with very tight layovers. A teenager heading to a tournament got a new flight and a snack voucher. A grandparent traveling to a birthday party received a seat near the front to help with timing at arrival. The mother with the baby got an extra set of napkins and a smile that said, "We see you." The cabin felt different again. The edges softened. The string that had been tight began to ease back toward slack. In the middle of these small fixes, the operations manager asked to collect the brief written statements he had requested. He did not press anyone. He took what people offered and thanked them for their time. Amara sent her note by email to the address on his card, as promised. The row 7 witness wrote his few sentences in simple words. The college student added a short line about how small things can change the room. The manager stored each note with care. He planned to share them with the training team and the base supervisor, not for blame, but for learning. Before stepping off, the manager checked once more with the captain and the new attendant. He offered a final reminder: slow words, steady eyes, soft hands. The lead attendant smiled a tired, grateful smile. She repeated the phrase aloud and pinned it to the day like a small badge. The captain reviewed the timeline, the paperwork, and the pushback order. He looked down the aisle and saw a room that was not perfect but was calmer and ready. Amara felt the shift too. She saw how many hands it takes to bring a busy day back into balance: the captain's measured voice, the gate agent's quiet help, the manager's steady questions, the crew's willingness to reset, and the passenger's patience under pressure. She did not think of her phone call as power. She thought of it as process, a small lever in a big machine, meant to keep the machine kind. She sat back, placed the paper back on her lap, and watched the light on the wing. The jet bridge was still attached. For a moment, time stood between two doors: the door to the plane and the door to the terminal, and everyone waited to see which would close first. The captain glanced at the clock, then at the checklist. The room was ready to move again, but not only because the paperwork said so. It was ready because the feeling in the room said so. People's shoulders were lower. Their voices were softer. Their eyes were not searching for trouble. They were waiting for flight. Part of the story was still ahead, and the next steps would not be hers alone. The airline would choose how to turn notes into practice. The crew would choose how to carry today's lesson into tomorrow's schedule. The passengers would choose what to remember: the delay, or the care. For Amara, one truth remained clear. When we slow down to listen, even a crowded cabin can feel larger. Even a grounded plane can feel like it is already going somewhere better. The jet bridge stayed in place, and the cabin held its quiet shape, like a room that had learned how to breathe again. The new attendant had a gentle way of standing, with open shoulders and a kind face. He moved down the aisle and checked on small needs: a blanket for the grandparent, a cup of water for the parent with the sleeping baby, a smile for the young couple who had balanced coffee and backpacks earlier. The lead attendant watched him work and seemed to settle, too. The captain and the operations manager spoke softly at the front and checked their lists. The plane was not moving yet, but the feeling in the room had moved forward. The operations manager returned to Amara's row and asked if she could step onto the jet bridge for one more brief conversation, only to complete the report for the record. He explained that when a cabin event leads to a staffing change, they need names spelled correctly, contact information, and a short summary in writing. He said it helps the training team learn from real moments. Amara agreed. She liked that word, learn. She stood, smoothed her jacket, and followed him to the jet bridge, where the air felt cooler and wider. On the jet bridge, the manager spoke in a careful and respectful tone. He asked for her full name as it should appear in a statement. She took out her wallet and showed her identification. Her name was printed there: Justice Amara Brooks. The manager's eyes moved from the card to her face, and his posture changed in a small, honest way. Respect appeared in his shoulders, not because she had asked for it, but because the title carried meaning. He did not hide his surprise. "Justice Brooks," he said softly. "Thank you for staying calm. Thank you for sharing your notes with us." Amara nodded. She explained that she did not use her title earlier because she wanted the process to be fair for everyone. She said she was speaking as a traveler, not as a judge. She cared about tone and safety, and she believed small adjustments could make a big difference in a tight, sensitive space like an airplane cabin. She spoke about the way stress can travel, how a sharp voice can sharpen every person in the room, and how a simple phrase, said gently, can loosen the knot. The manager listened without interrupting. He took a slow breath and said that he had worked in many parts of the airline, the ramp, the gate, the cabin, and now operations. He knew how easy it was for a busy morning to turn into a hard moment. But he also knew that when people felt respected, they followed instructions faster, trusted the crew more, and made better choices in emergencies. We teach this, he said. But teaching and living are different under pressure. He asked if she had any practical advice he could share with the training team later that day. Amara thought for a moment. She suggested 3 short ideas, each easy to remember and use even on a rushed flight. First, slow words. When you slow your words, you slow the room. Second, steady eyes. Look at the person you are guiding and let your eyes carry calm. Third, soft hands or no hands at all, because in a tight aisle, even a light touch can feel like force. She said these ideas came from many places: courtrooms, schools, clinics, and airplanes. They had the same goal: help people hear and follow important instructions without fear. The manager wrote those ideas down in his notebook. He underlined them and placed a small star beside each one, as if to promise he would carry them back to the team. He told Amara that her note had already sparked a conversation with the base supervisor. They were preparing to sit with the crew member who had stepped off and offer coaching, not to punish, but to restore balance and teach. They would also plan a short huddle for the next morning's cruise, a 5-minute refresh on de-escalation, customer care, and awareness of how tone can change a room. Amara then asked a question that surprised him with its kindness. "How is she?" she asked, meaning the attendant who had used the sharp voice. The manager said that she looked tired and worried, but also open to learning. He said he appreciated Amara's grace and the way she had accepted the apology. "People make better choices," he added, "when they feel they have a path back." Amara agreed. She said that accountability and empathy can live in the same room. "We want better," she said. "We do not always want to break someone to get there." A sound from the cabin drew their attention, the soft chime that means the captain is making an announcement. They stepped back inside to listen. The captain thanked everyone for their patience and explained that they were close to departure. He did not give details about the earlier event. He simply said the team had made adjustments to ensure a calm and safe flight, and they were waiting for a final clearance from operations. He promised to keep everyone updated. His tone was warm and steady, like the hum of a well-tuned engine. The new attendant began the pre-flight checks again, walking down the aisle with calm steps. He noticed the older passenger with the cane rubbing his knee and quietly asked if extra legroom would help. A gate agent found an open seat a few rows forward and moved him with care. The parent with the baby whispered thank you and smiled with the kind of relief that shows in the shoulders. The college student, who had been ready to record earlier, now opened a textbook and tried to focus. The small city inside the airplane was finding its rhythm. The operations manager returned to Amara with a formal form on a tablet. He asked if she would review the text they had typed from her email and confirm spelling and sequence. She read it carefully. The words were simple and precise: what happened, where, and when, how the tone had felt, how the guiding hand had landed in a narrow aisle, and how the small moment had changed the air in the room. She added one sentence, which she felt was important: the passenger remained calm, and many others did too, which helped the situation not grow. She handed the tablet back with a nod. He thanked her and then, in a quiet private voice, asked if she wanted her title included. She thought for a second and said, "Included? Not for status. For clarity." She explained that, as a public servant, she often spoke about dignity and safety, and it would help the training team understand why she was so focused on tone. The manager understood. He promised to treat the document with care, share it only with those who needed it, and use it to build better habits, not headlines. Back in her seat, Amara tucked her phone away and looked out the window at the busy ramp. She saw a ground crew member standing by the nose wheel and giving a thumbs up to the cockpit. She watched a baggage cart pull away like a small parade float loaded with ordinary lives, gifts, books, a child's blue backpack with a tiny rocket patch. She thought about how many hands support a single flight, hands that load, guide, check, and calm. She knew that good systems were made of good people and good promises kept in small moments. The minutes passed with purpose now. The jet bridge pulled away, the door closed, and the cabin lights softened for takeoff. The lead attendant stood in the aisle to begin the safety demonstration, and the new attendant moved to the front to help. Their voices were smooth and kind. "Please take a moment to review the safety information card," they said, and it sounded like an invitation, not an order. People looked up and watched. They reached for their seat belts and checked them without hurry. Even the little movements felt respectful, like a room that understood itself. Just before pushback, the operations manager stepped on the speaker for a single sentence addressed to the crew, not the passengers. It was a simple reminder, offered like a gift, not a warning: "Team, slow words, steady eyes, soft hands." The crew smiled in a quiet way that only crews do, a brief exchange of trust between people who carry others. The captain requested pushback and thanked the ramp team. The plane rolled back, paused, and then began to taxi, a gentle glide that felt like a promise kept. As they moved, Amara felt a lightness she had not expected. It was not because anyone knew her title now. It was because the room had changed in a real way, and not only for her. The older passenger had more space for his knee. The parent had water and quiet. The couple had their hands free. The college student had a chapter to read and peace to read it. The new attendant had a clear plan and a calm partner. The captain had a cabin that listened. The operations team had notes and next steps. The airline had a small, solid example it could carry into tomorrow. Taxiing took a little longer than usual because of the earlier delay, but no one seemed to mind. When the plane reached the runway, there was a smooth pause, a deep engine breath, and then the soft push that says, "We are leaving the ground." The city below became a map of lights and lines. The cabin stayed quiet and respectful. Amara felt the lift, the strange and wonderful truth that a heavy thing can rise when all its parts work together with care. After takeoff, the lead attendant checked in on Amara. She asked if everything felt comfortable and if Amara needed anything. Amara asked for water and a moment to pass along a thought. She said that many passengers will accept delays if they understand the why, and that the captain's tone had helped everyone accept the pause. The lead attendant smiled and said she would share that praise with the cockpit. She also said she planned to write down the phrase they had heard earlier. "Slow words," she repeated. "I like that." Amara took a sip of water and opened her paperback. But she did not read yet. She wrote a short message to herself in her notebook, a habit she kept for moments that felt like turning points. She wrote, "Quiet power makes the room stronger. Teach this again." She closed the notebook and placed it on top of the book, a small reminder to carry into her talk at the community law clinic. She would tell the students about this flight, not to make anyone look bad, but to show how leadership can be everyday and gentle and still change a whole room. As the seatbelt sign went off, people adjusted their seats and reached for their headphones. The new attendant started the beverage service with a soft greeting for each row. The grandparent with the cane asked for tea and said the move to the new seat had helped a lot. The young couple said they were on their way to a wedding and felt grateful the flight had stayed kind. The college student thanked the crew for taking the time to set things right. There were no big speeches. Just small words that, together, sounded like trust. From the window, the sky looked clean and wide, a quiet blue that held the plane like a steady hand. Amara rested her head against the seat and let her breath match the gentle rhythm of flight. She knew there would be more to do on the ground, follow-up notes, training plans, and a promise to keep. But for now, In this small city in the sky, a better pattern had started, one that could be taught, repeated, and remembered. The turning point had not been loud. It had been simple, a name shown for clarity, ideas shared for learning, and a choice made for tone over speed. That was enough to change the day. The flight leveled at cruising altitude, and the cabin settled into a gentle rhythm. A soft chime sounded, and people reached for books, headphones, and snacks. The new attendant rolled the cart forward with an easy smile. He spoke in short, kind sentences that felt like a warm blanket. He asked the grandparent with the cane if the water was warm enough for tea. He offered extra napkins to the parent with the sleeping baby. He joked lightly with the young couple about their wedding trip and wished them a joyful weekend. The mood felt different now, not just calm but caring. Amara watched this with quiet gratitude. She felt the room breathing together. As the cart reached her row, the lead attendant paused and asked if Amara needed anything else. Amara asked for plain water and a lemon slice. The attendant nodded and returned with both, placing the cup carefully on the tray table. "Thank you for your patience earlier," the attendant said softly. "I know delays are hard." Amara nodded. "Thank you for how you're leading now," she replied. "People can feel it." The attendant's shoulders lowered a little, as if the words pressed a reset button she needed to. After service, the captain made a brief announcement. His voice carried steady kindness. He thanked everyone for their understanding and reminded them that safety, both physical and emotional, matters in every phase of flight. He did not talk about the earlier event. He looked forward. "We'll keep you updated on our arrival time," he said. "Our team will help with connections." He signed off with a simple phrase that matched the day: "We appreciate you." Amara opened her notebook to capture the small details that make a story useful to students. She wrote about the 3 ideas she shared with the operations manager: slow words, steady eyes, soft hands. She added 2 more she had noticed in the air. 4th, clear why. People accept instructions when they understand the reason. 5th, short praise. A kind sentence lowers the temperature of a room. She smiled as she wrote. Good habits have a simple shape. The rest of the flight passed without rush. A child dropped a toy, and 3 nearby adults reached at once to help. The college student offered the parent with the baby a seat swap so the baby could stretch a little in the aisle during a lull. The grandparent closed his eyes, stretched his knee in his new seat, and fell into a light nap. The cabin felt like a quiet neighborhood for a while, one where strangers look out for one another because someone set a gentle tone. When the plane began its descent, the attendants prepared the cabin with those same steady motions. The lead attendant reminded people to put away large devices and raise seat backs, but the words felt like invitations, not commands. "Let's get ready together," she said. The cart was locked. The seat belt sign glowed. The wing flaps moved like careful hands. The landing was smooth, a soft kiss of rubber on runway, and a light cheer echoed through a few rows. People clapped not because they were frightened, but because they were relieved and grateful. They had been held well. At the gate, the captain thanked everyone again and invited those with long connections to let others exit first. Many did. The new attendant stood near the door and said goodbye with eye contact that felt real. "Take good care," he told the grandparent. "Congratulations," he told the couple. "Good luck with your studies," he said to the college student, who smiled happily at being seen. When Amara reached the door, the lead attendant said, "Thank you for your calm." Amara replied, "Thank you for your grace." It was a small exchange, but it carried the whole day inside it. In the terminal, the operations manager waited near the gate with a short stack of cards for rebooking and a clear path marked by stanchions. He had already spoken with the base supervisor and scheduled a coaching session for the crew member who had stepped off. He had also reserved a small room for a morning huddle the next day, a quick circle to practice short, calm phrases and to remind crews that tone shapes trust. When he saw Amara, he nodded respectfully. "We'll follow through," he said. "You have my word." She believed him. She had seen action already. That evening, after a quick stop for tea, Amara walked into the community law clinic where students had been waiting to hear her talk. The room was full of young faces and tired but hopeful eyes. She did not tell the entire plain story right away. She began with the theme, "Dignity is not a luxury, it is a tool." Then she shared the simple outline of her day, how a small moment on a plane became a chance to reset a whole room. She did not use names. She did not point fingers. She described the steps, calm words, clear why, and small praise. The students leaned forward. They had seen tight rooms too, classrooms during exams, crowded buses, noisy offices, fast kitchens. Her ideas traveled easily to their worlds. One student raised a hand and asked the question many were thinking: how do you stay calm when someone is not calm with you? Amara paused to honor the honesty of that question. She said she practices. She keeps phrases ready. "I hear you. Here's what we can do. Thank you for your patience. We will take one step at a time." She said she breathes in for 4 counts and out for 4 counts before she speaks. "The brain follows the breath," she said. "If I slow my breath, my words slow too." The students wrote that down. Another student asked if using her title would have helped earlier. Amara smiled softly. She said titles are tools, but they are not the only tools. She had chosen to be a traveler first so the process could be fair and repeatable. "I want a system that does the right thing even when no one has a title," she said. "That's our goal in law, in service, in life." Heads nodded. A teacher in the back wiped a small tear, not from sadness, but from relief at hearing a path she could teach to her own class. After the talk, Amara received an email from the operations manager. He thanked her again and attached a short internal memo he had written, with permission to share it at the clinic as a case study without any private details. The memo was simple and strong. It listed 5 practices for crews to use that week: warm greeting, short reason for rules, gentle pace in language, praise for cooperation, and a 30-second reset if a moment goes tight. He called it the calm cabin reset. At the bottom, he included the phrase Amara had offered: slow words, steady eyes, soft hands. He had printed it on a small card for crews to carry behind their ID badge. Over the next few days, small signs of change appeared. The base supervisor reported fewer cabin complaints and more compliments about tone. A captain emailed the operations manager to share how a tense boarding moment cooled when he added, "Here's why we need to move bags around. It helps weight and balance and keeps everyone safe." A flight attendant wrote that a short praise, "Thanks for helping us keep the aisle clear," worked faster than any raised voice. None of these stories went to the news. They moved quietly through team chats and morning huddles. They became part of the way things were done. The crew member who had stepped off that day attended coaching with a support specialist. She practiced new phrases. She practiced a slow breath before speaking. She asked for a mentor on the line to shadow her first 2 flights back. The union rep joined the session to make sure everything stayed fair and supportive. The supervisor focused on learning and wellness, not blame. At the end of the week, the crew member wrote a short note to herself, to her team, and to the person she had nudged in the aisle. In it she said, "I had a hard morning. I made it harder with my tone. I am learning a new way." The note lived in her pocket. It helped her keep the promise she had made to herself. Amara kept moving through her own week, hearing from students who tried the calm phrases in their internships and classrooms. One wrote that he used clear why to settle a tense group project. Another said she tried short praise with her younger siblings at home and saw how their shoulders dropped when they felt noticed. Amara smiled at these messages and saved them in a folder called Small Wins. She believed small wins make strong systems. A few days later, The airline invited Amara to record a 3-minute message for their internal training library. She agreed on 2 conditions: that it focus on practices, not people, and that it be available to all front-line teams, not just cabin crew. The airline said yes. She sat in a quiet room with a simple camera and spoke in the same calm voice she had used on the plane and at the clinic. She said, "Our words carry weight in tight spaces. Slow them down. Tell people why. Thank them for helping. We can do a lot with kindness." The video went live the next week. Supervisors played it before morning briefings. Teams repeated the phrases in circles like warm ups before a game. A week after the original flight, Amara returned to the airport for a different trip. She boarded another full plane and watched a small moment unfold 3 rows ahead. A traveler reached up with a heavy bag and hesitated. The attendant stepped in with steady eyes and a gentle tone. "I can help with that," he said. "Let's turn it upright. This way we can fit more." He added a short "why, we're keeping space for folks still boarding." The traveler smiled, the bag slid in, and the aisle moved without heat. The room stayed soft. Amara felt a quiet joy. She did not clap. She did not say who she was. She simply breathed and thought, this is how change travels person to person, phrase by phrase. On her connecting flight, she checked her email and found a short note from the operations manager. The subject line said, "Update, com cabin reset." Inside, he shared 3 numbers and 1 story. The numbers were simple: fewer complaints, more compliments, and on-time departures staying stable. The story was sweeter: a child had drawn a picture of a flight attendant and given it to the crew, with the words, "Thank you for nice voice." The manager wrote, "We will keep at it." Amara replied with 2 words that held her whole hope, "Please do." That night, she sat by her window with a cup of tea and looked at the city lights. She thought about how a single call, made in a quiet voice, had rippled into many gentle actions. She knew not every day would go this smoothly. People would get tired again. Moments would get tight again. But the path was clear now. The tools were simple and ready. Slow words. Steady eyes. Soft hands. Clear why. Short praise. These were not slogans. They were small bridges people could walk across together when the room felt narrow. Before sleep, she wrote one more note in her notebook. "Real change is not loud," she wrote. "It is shared. It fits in the pocket. It shows up on the hardest morning and says, we can do this a better way." She closed the book and turned off the light. Somewhere in the sky, another cabin was practicing the same pattern. Somewhere on the ground, another team was starting a day with a calm circle and a clear promise. The world is wide, she thought, but good habits connected, one kind sentence at a time. Weeks passed, and the small ripples from that one morning kept moving. They moved through team chats, morning huddles, short memos, and quiet hallway talks. People inside the airline started using the same simple language in many places. Gate agents tried clear why when asking someone to check a bag. Ramp crews tried short praise when a teammate helped load extra fast in the rain. Call center staff used slow words when a traveler sounded upset about a delay. The phrase that began on a jet bridge, "Slow words, steady eyes, soft hands," became a small compass that fit in a pocket. It did not fix everything. It did not make the work easy. It made the work kinder. The operations manager sent another update to Amara on a calm Friday afternoon. The subject line said, 3 weeks later. The note was short and clear, just like their plan. Cabin conflicts had dropped. Compliments about crew tone had risen. On-time departures were steady. He added a short story at the end. A crew member had led a reset during a tough boarding at dawn. She paused, took a breath, and told the cabin the reason for a seat shuffle in plain words. The room softened. People moved willingly. The whole flight felt different after that one honest sentence. Amara read the update at her office desk after a long court day. She smiled slowly. She was proud, but not proud of herself alone. She was proud of the many hands that had chosen a better way when the room got tight. She replied with 2 lines, "Thank you for following through. Please keep teaching this." Then she closed her laptop and took out her notebook. She wrote a new line beneath the others, "The best safety tools fit in a sentence." On a quiet Saturday, an email arrived from a name she recognized but did not expect. It was from the flight attendant who had used the sharp tone that day and then stepped off for coaching. The email was humble and simple. The attendant thanked Amara for accepting her apology. She wrote that the coaching had helped. She was learning to breathe first and speak second. She said she had written her own pocket note and kept it in her badge holder, "Make the room softer." She asked if Amara would be willing to meet for coffee, not for blame or praise, but for learning. Only if it felt right. Amara read the message twice. She believed in gentle accountability. She believed people can change when they feel safe to learn. She agreed to meet, with the same 2 conditions she used for everything now: short, practical, and kind. They chose a small cafe near the airport on a sunny afternoon. The cafe had big windows and small plants on each table. Planes climbed quietly in the distance like silverfish in a bright river. When the attendant walked in, she looked different. The neat bun was there, but her face was softer, and her eyes were steady. She held a notebook and a pen. She greeted Amara with respect and a quiet smile. They sat by the window. The attendant spoke first. She said the morning of the incident had been hard before it even began. An alarm had not gone off. A bus had been late. A catering cart had been short on supplies. She had tried to hold 10 things in her head while moving a cabin full of humans who each held 10 things in theirs. "I let the clock run me," she said. "I forgot the room." Amara listened without judgment. She asked one question at a time. "What helps when the clock gets loud? What phrase can you use in the first 3 seconds? What do you want your hands to do in a narrow aisle?" The attendant wrote her answers in small, careful letters. "I want my breath to lead," she said. "I want my words to be a bridge, not a wall." She showed Amara the pocket note she carried. It was the size of a business card, with 3 lines in blue ink. Slow words. Steady eyes. Soft hands. She had added one more line below in pencil, "Clear why." They shared a simple plan for the hardest moments. If the room gets tight, pause for one breath. Name the why in one short sentence. Thank the group for helping. Then move one step at a time, not 5 at once. They talked about how apology works best when it is small and honest. "I'm sorry for my tone. Thank you for your patience." No long stories. No excuses. Just a door opening to a better choice. At the end of the coffee, the attendant asked if she could tell her team that a judge had met her as one person meets another. Amara nodded. "You can say that a person who believes in dignity met you where you were," she said. "Because that is what happened." They stood. They shook hands. It was not dramatic. It was real. Sometimes real is stronger than dramatic. A month later, the airline held a short internal summit for safety and service leads from all bases. They invited the operations manager to share the case study. They also invited Amara to offer a 5-minute message, recorded once and shared many times. She agreed. She stood on a simple stage in a small room with folding chairs. She wore the same calm suit she wore on most days. She spoke in the same simple English she used in the cabin and at the clinic. She said, "Our tone is part of our safety equipment. It is not on the checklist, but it should be in our pocket. Use it like you use your seatbelt demo every time, the same way, in your own voice." The operations manager followed with practical steps. He showed the pocket card they had printed. He told the story of the reset at dawn. He named the numbers, not to boast, but to prove that small tools can shift big systems. He ended with a thank you to crews who carry the hardest mornings. He did not name the attendant from that day. He did not need to. The lesson stood on its own feet. That same week, a national aviation safety group hosted a virtual panel. The topic was human factors you can teach in 5 minutes. The airline shared their pocket card. Another airline shared a different tool for comm gates. A train company listened and took notes. A school district joined to learn about tone and trust for buses. The ideas moved beyond planes, because tight rooms exist everywhere, in terminals, classrooms, kitchens, clinics, and courts. People who hold rooms for others need tools that fit in a breath. On a busy morning, Amara took another flight for work. The terminal was humming. The line at security was long. A gate change flashed on the screen. She reached her plane with a minute to spare and felt her own breath quicken. Then she heard the gate agent's voice, slow and steady, "We'll board by groups in just a moment. Thank you for your patience. Here's why we're pausing, we're making space for a wheelchair transfer at the front. We want to do it right." The room softened. People nodded. The pause felt like care, not delay. Amara smiled. The tool had moved again, this time to a gate desk under bright lights where everyone could see. On board, a small moment tested the pattern. A passenger near the back grew anxious when the overhead bins appeared full. He spoke quickly. He pointed at his bag and at the bins. He sounded scared to check the bag because it held medicine. The attendant knelt slightly to bring her eyes level with his. She took one slow breath and spoke in calm words. "I hear you. Let's keep your medicine with you. We'll place the bag in the coat closet and keep the medicine under your seat." She added a clear why, "We want your medicine close by in case you need it." The passenger's shoulders lowered. The room held. A small problem stayed small. During climb, mild bumps brushed the cabin. The captain turned on the seat belt sign and explained in plain words what was happening. "Light chop ahead. We'll keep the sign on for 10 minutes. Thank you for staying seated." The words were simple and exact. People felt informed, not scolded. The bumps passed. The sign went off. The cart moved again. Life in the sky resumed like a song picking up at the chorus after a gentle rest. Back on the ground that evening, Amara attended a small award event for community partners who support fair practice in public spaces. She had not expected to receive anything. She went to clap for others. At the end, the host called her name for a simple honor, a token of thanks for turning a small incident into a shared practice that helped many people. The award was not shiny or loud. It was a small wooden card holder with the words "Dignity fits in your pocket" carved into one side. She ran her finger over the letters and felt a warm wave of quiet joy. A few days later, a letter arrived at her office. It was written in careful cursive on plain paper. It was from the grandparent with the cane. He had tracked down a way to send thanks. He wrote that the new seat had helped his knee and his day. He wrote that the kind tone had calmed his nerves, which had been sensitive since an illness last year. He said the crew made him feel less like a problem and more like a person. At the bottom, he added a line that made Amara pause, "Your calm made room for mine." She placed the letter in her small wins folder with care. In her next class at the law clinic, Amara shared one last teaching from the airline story. She told the students that systems improve when language improves. She asked them to practice out loud, one sentence to name a why, one sentence to thank a group, one sentence to invite a next step. The room echoed with soft voices trying steady rhythms. It sounded like a warm tide washing a shoreline smooth. She ended with a reminder that belongs to every job: real authority is quiet. It does not shout. It invites. Late one evening, After a long week of court days, clinic hours, and small emails that carried real weight, Amara sat by her window with tea. The city glowed like a field of small stars. She opened her notebook to the last page and wrote a closing line for this chapter. A plane is a small city in the sky. Its safety is math and metal and also manners. On a hard morning, one slow sentence can help 100 strangers breathe together. She dated the page and closed the book. Before she turned out the light, she checked her phone. There was a short message from the operations manager. It said, "We're keeping the pocket card. We've added it to new hire kits. The crews asked for it." She replied with 3 words, "That's the work." Then she set the phone down and let the room go quiet. Somewhere, under the same night sky, a crew practiced a soft hello in a bright galley. A gate agent chose a clear Y for a hard ask. A traveler took a slow breath and felt less alone. The world was still busy. People were still tired. Plans still changed. But a better way was now close at hand, the size of a card, the length of a sentence, the weight of a gentle voice. And each time someone used it, a crowded room felt a little larger, not in space, but in heart.